Yes.
We will do the introductions. First and foremost, Dave Filoni, executive producer, supervising director.
We don't get this stuff at work.
Let's go next.
Right, I never see
Ashley
that
Eckstein. Vanessa Marshall.
Who said that?
We all know.
Pinocchio?
Freddie Prinze Jr. And he's back, y'all. Dee Bradley Baker. So we're gonna do this really casually. If we could just do a raise of hands when you guys have a question, I'll point at you and we'll hopefully get to everybody. Okay? Go ahead.
Question, who's voicing the fifth brother?
Whose voice is the fifth brother? Oh my gosh. I'm blanking on the poor man's name right now. You're gonna have to get that to him. Because that tells you how many episodes he's in, but I'm so sorry. Yeah, it slips my mind.
Was that Amy who asked?
Yeah.
I'll get it to you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
sorry. So I know there's so many characters anymore. I don't know a lot about Star Wars. When you realize that, this will go much smoother. For you?
Okay, next.
Yeah, Dave, I'm just curious how long it takes from the like for the entire process for each episode. How long that process takes?
It takes a long time. You know, I've always rounded it. It takes, if you think of it in terms of a year per episode, we've gotten it down less than that nowadays. Rebels is actually made considerably faster than Clone Wars was. Clone Wars was easily a year. This, we have it down, I like to be generic and just say several months. But at the end of the day, from script to screen, to shoot an episode, like once I have the script and it's locked, so I give it to an episodic director and I hand off all the kind of staging and screen direction, what we want to happen. That takes about 6 weeks to actually just shoot it so that it's rough proxy, and then I send it to Disney, and then they send it back, and then we all talk about what we like and don't like. Get 2 additional weeks to revise that reel. Once that 8-week period is over, right, it goes into animation lighting, and we're just running at that point all the way till we get it back. Probably, that takes about 3 months all said. I've got one more shot when it comes back in color to change anything that's horrifically wrong or embarrassing, and or to get something right that's not working, and then final sound design and music. And I don't believe in the statement fix it in post. By that point it's usually too late. So, but at every point everything's evolutionary in Star Wars up to the last moment. So there was a case just a couple weeks ago where I was getting rid of a couple lines of dialogue in final sound block. It just hits you wrong. I've come to the decision that over time that it's trusting that instinct when you're watching something and you just have the slightest little tick of, that's lame. But you have to stop and get rid of it. You have to crush that, and it's harder than you think. But it can make a big difference in the episode. That's what it all comes down to. So, but I always think of it in terms of, I'd say Rebels is more like 8 months. Depends when you count the story started, really, from its inception.
Thank you.
Dave, I was curious as why you guys had premiered the Siege of Lothal in July, and now season now debuts in October. Was there a strategy as far as why you guys released that in July, and then we had to wait so long now?
It's an interesting thing to me. I don't have a lot to do with that. If you ask me right now, like, Dave, what time, when does the show start? I don't even know. There's a whole bunch of things. I'm so busy making the show, and we're running so fast that, like, someone will say, hey, I saw the episode last night. I'm like, great. That's not the world that I'm in anymore, because Star Wars is just happening 24 hours a day. But what I found fascinating this year was when Clone Wars would end and then the next season would start, for whatever reason, it didn't ever feel like that big a period. This felt like a long time to me. Like, even to me, if you just I empathize with the wait that fans have had. The only thing I can say is there's so much Star Wars news every day. I can't imagine anyone's ever lacking for Star Wars information. I mean, this is like, everything in my feed is Star Wars news, Steelers and Penguins. That's about it. Pirates every now and then, but that's about all I get. So at least there's a lot of Star Wars to talk about, you know. But yeah, I don't know what the grand strategy was. I like to think that people are just so excited to have Darth Vader and some stuff. They couldn't wait to release it. And at Celebration, we had a great opportunity. We like to connect very directly with fans of Lucasfilm, so to fill a room up with fans and have them watch Vader, and we're all in the room together, was an awesome opportunity, because I had a lot of key creatives from my team there that, you know, don't get to do events like this. A lot of, you know, that for the actors, I think it's important for them to hear the audience, what they react to, what they don't. So, you know, it's an exciting experience. It's an educational one for my crew. So I think that was a huge opportunity for us at that time.
Okay. So obviously it's really exciting to have Ahsoka and Rex back in the mix.
Ahsoka, not. Right.
Wolf, let's say Wolf.
The orange one. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
But how much will they be sort of part of the crew on a regular basis? Will they kind of come in and out? And if they do come in and out, will we get a good idea of what sort of adventures they're having when we're not seeing them?
Well, you know, luckily I like Dee and Ashley. They're nice people, so hanging out with them isn't a problem. So they can be in a decent amount of episodes. But their story had to serve the story of the Rebels. That was the most important thing. I couldn't just haphazardly bring them in because I like them. You know, I love the characters Ahsoka and Rex. It was hard to let them go after so long, telling their stories, but it had to be purposeful. So for a long time on season 1, I didn't even want to have them in it. It would be brought up to me by different members of the story group, I think because they wanted to be nice and say, well, Dave, we're open to this. I'm like, yeah, it's not right. Kanan, Hera, Ezra, Sabine, Zeb, they have to own that space. And everybody knew. So once you know them and you understand their character dynamics, to sit there and say, suddenly you're around the table and you go, wow, I wonder what Kanan would think of Rex. And you realize he probably wouldn't think much of Rex. That's very challenging because the kids that grow up with Rex love Rex. But if I was able to create a group of kids that love Rex, and they also separately loved Kanan, and now we have a conflict. But you also have a boy that didn't know the Clone Wars, like any kid that didn't watch the Clone Wars. So they would go, well, what's the problem with Rex? So that we found really interesting, and that helped serve the relationship of Kanan and Ezra really well. And then this one here, Ahsoka, really helps serve the story as far as, if you want to have Vader in Rebels, you can't just bring him into it, because he's going to crush them. Like, they don't stand a chance, you know? Ahsoka has a personal connection to Anakin Skywalker that we believe people are interested in what's that side of the story. People are interested in what's Vader like before he realizes his son is alive. And so that became important. Plus, she's a force wielder that's way more progressed, no offense, Freddie, than Kanan. She had much more training, you know, from Anakin Skywalker directly, one of the greatest of all Jedi, from Obi-Wan Kenobi, from Yoda. So she brings that lineage to the Rebels, but a perspective which is, yeah, that didn't work for me. I walked away from it, which is also challenging then when you get to Ezra, because he's a kid, one of the first kids that's growing up where there is no Jedi Order. There is no temple for him to go to. There aren't 10,000 examples of what it means to be a great Jedi Knight. He's making it up being a student as he goes, as much as Kanan now has to make up the training based on his memory of when he was a child. Those are all interesting story problems for Star Wars Rebels to have that, you know, made it worthwhile to bring these two into it.
Disney and Lucasfilm have started opening up the tone of what Star Wars could be with different types of films, and it seems like you're getting a lot of room to open up and explore those avenues on both Clone Wars and now Rebels. How is that for you, getting to find new places where Star Wars can kind of breathe and find a new identity? And how is that for the cast, being able to breathe a life into a franchise we all know, but give it a little twist and modern spin?
I think for me, and you guys should go, it's really just about the opportunities we have for the characters, and if that means, you know, if things have to get a little darker at times, then it has to. You know, as you learn more about these guys in the beginning of season 1, now in season 2, their life has to get more complex. So it's a natural story course for me. The only challenge I find creatively when writing it at times is that kids now have cell phones and devices that, you know, probably work better than the communicators they had in A New Hope. So, you know, Threeville could just put the comm on vibrate instead of shutting it off, and then he probably would have known they were the trash compactor, I don't know, but think a little bit about those things. But it, you know, I don't know, it's about the character opportunity for me. You guys want to answer? What's like to be part of the Star Wars?
Well,
You
I
need to
think-
repeat the question.
The opportunities you're getting to explore the tone, like, you know, Cain and Ezra have a more humorous back and forth than Obi-Wan and Luke ever had. It's
Yeah.
more brotherly.
No, but there's a, like Dave said, everything is with a reason. It's brotherly because Kanan sucks at it. He doesn't know how to be a master. He was on the run at the age that he finds Ezra, so he's making it up as he goes. He's hustling the way he did as a kid. He literally says, I don't know what Yoda meant, just do it. You know what I mean? Like that's in his moments of honesty, you know what I mean? But you certainly see him try to commit to the role of master, and sometimes he looks like an idiot because he doesn't know, but it's like fake it till you make it, you know what I mean? And I think when he has that moment with Yoda in season 1, and it's just a simple line where he says, oh, so you're a master, basically. And you just, everything kind of closes up on Kanan real quick, because he's like, no, I'm not. And so from that moment on, I think once, it's like anything, once you're not afraid to fail, then you rarely fail. And once he's not afraid of being a master, he becomes a pretty good master. And you see that at the end, when it's a lesson that they taught in Clone Wars all the time, and everything is once there's no attachment, once the Ezra attachment's gone, the Inquisitor gets the hell kicked out of him. And he even tells me, he's like, that was a mistake. Like, that's the line that they wrote. Like, you would have beat us, but you just messed up and you killed the one thing that was holding me back. So I think he's learning at an advanced level the way anyone in the streets would learn, and I have a lot of fun doing that. But and I don't know if you meant it, you know, literally, but I don't feel it's a modern twist on Star Wars, because I feel it's much more of a throwback to the original trilogy, just in the look and the style and the vibe, and it's certainly what the older movies are what inspires my performance. I'm not taking many contemporary things, except I stole a thing Lawrence Fishburne did in Deep Cover.
Wait, really? The
Yeah,
Deep Cover?
yeah. He had this moment with Jeff Goldblum where Jeff Goldblum kills Clarence Williams III. And Lawrence Fishburne's like, and it's that moment, that was a mistake, where he's like, oh, I can't say it because it's dirty words and this is Disney Channel and that was a hardcore movie. But he's basically saying, Jeff Goldblum, you're done. And that I took it and made it Jedi-ish and made it my own, and that's the Kanan moment. To 187 by Snoop Dogg.
Dave, how is it to see the characters kind of evolve with their relationships and their skills since 10 years ago with Ahsoka, and now with these characters' second season, as they are kind of getting stronger and better and their relationship is changing?
Yeah, it's a different type of evolution because, you know, as I said, Ahsoka was in a system where she was trained at a temple, and she had a very formal system of teaching, at least before she met Anakin. And Anakin kind of changes that. But with these guys, we have a much more diverse group of characters as far as, you know, some are weapons experts, some are great pilots. One's making it up as he goes, one's a clear-cut warrior. So it's been interesting to develop, you know, we spend less time on what their skills are and more time on developing who the people are. I think in season 2, what's most exciting is you will learn a lot more about where they came from and what drove them to the position they're in on Star Wars Rebels, which I think a lot of people wanted in season 1. Like, for example, if you didn't know the Clone Wars, you got a whole lot today as far as Kanan having to explain to Ezra what happened to him and why he feels the way he does about Rex. And you'll have episodes where we'll just focus in on like Hera, and it's all about her. We have more than one this year actually, which explains kind of 2 parts of the backstory. Of like, you know, one is very much you as the pilot and what that's about, and one, I'll just say, because I'm in the mood today, which is gets into her family and her father, and why is she not a part of Ryloth and what has happened there, because her father was a big revolutionary in Clone Wars, so you almost think it'd be natural that she would be alongside him. So we get very specifically into those character backgrounds in season 2, which I think we all found really exciting.
If Tia and Taylor were here, maybe you'd have got a secret about them.
Yeah,
You know who to be mad at.
there's an awesome one about Tia though that is in we have a new trailer we're gonna debut next week, and there's a direct. You can thank Kenobio for that. There's a big, she's like, we need more Sabine, and I'm like, okay, so let's just give the farm away, and we did, so. It's definitely something that if you watched Clone Wars, and I won't even have to hint more what it is, because if you watch Clone Wars and you hear what Sabine says, you'll be like, oh, that changes a lot, so it's good. She gets a lot of development. I'll say this, that, you know, we're working very far ahead in the show, and as the characters have evolved, I would argue that where we end up in the future on Rebels, Sabine kind of elevates and is every bit as important as Ezra as far as what you think of as dynamically who's the show about and where does it go, because they're both kind of the young people dealing with this war, and it just became more and more important to have them elevated and have like the mentor characters supportive, and but they all get much deeper backstories this year, and you see it. It's not just talked about, which is fun.
Dave, I know that George Lucas this was a show that kind of went off without George, and I wanted to know if you ever still talk to him about anything that you're dealing with in the season 2 or future seasons or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like, hey George, I have this idea, what do you think? No, we don't talk like that. You know, when I see him, we cover any number of topics, TV shows we watch, or I could never get him to talk sports, but that's George. But before he left, we had a lot of discussions, and I would bring up things that I felt were very important, like Ahsoka and Darth Vader, and I'm like, hey, so if they ever met, what do you think would happen? We would discuss it, and I've done several drawings of that encounter as a result of it, and so I made sure that before it was officially, separated, Disney and George, Star Wars and George, that I had this discussion with him, because now, I don't really want to bother him with it. He created it. I would tell you that it's always going to be special to him and important to him, but I think that he also, is excited to see what everybody does with it. I've shown him Rebels, so he's seen it, and he knows that, I follow the lessons I was taught as a good Jedi should. But I've expanded certain things that I wanted to do, and but nothing I feel is out of accord with what he would have done. Every decision I made on Clone Wars I did, or any interview I did, I said, is this something I would say or do if George was here in the room? Because I so greatly respect that it's his universe. And even to this day, as I go forward doing things, I always ask myself, is that something he'd really want? And the fans want all kinds of things. You can't get caught up in that. And I'll tell you why. It's because Star Wars is so strong after so many years, and people love so many different aspects of it. You have to be careful what you're serving. So you have to always serve the story of Star Wars and the characters of Star Wars. And I would say, for the prequel kids who love their prequel movies, they're very vocal now about all the things they love about it. And I love them too. And they get a lot of flack for prequels, whatever, I don't care. There's some of the most exciting moments in those films. And I've always been a big supporter of them. And I'm still, I treat Rebels the same way I did Clone Wars, which is if it's something compelling, I bring it in. So there's still stuff from the EU, what was called the EU is now called Legends, that appears in Rebels from time to time, the same way that it appeared from time to time in Clone Wars. It's just how we tell the stories, and George was always okay with that. So I continue.
how is it coming into this storyline with Rebels? And, you know, Ahsoka and Anakin were going through this scenario that Kanan and Ezra are going through. Do you bring a sort of, is it surreal, and do you bring that into your character for Ahsoka, and also would that influence how she might interact with Anakin, well, now Darth Vader?
You know, it was different to perform Ahsoka in Rebels versus Ahsoka in Clone Wars. There's oftentimes I'll say a line and Dave will say, no, that's too sweet. You know, that's too cute, that's too sweet. That's too much like Ahsoka in Clone Wars. And I think I did have to adjust my performance quite a bit, and I almost channel like Obi-Wan more, like she's more of the master now. And almost like Kanan is, you know, Kanan and Ezra are like Ahsoka and Anakin. So Ahsoka doesn't have the relationship with Ezra like Anakin and Ahsoka. She's more like Obi-Wan. Like Ahsoka wasn't super close with Obi-Wan. She always looked up to him with a matter of like reverence and respect. And so I think Ahsoka, that's a good comparison for her in Rebels. And so it was different because it was so long. I mean, we worked on Clone Wars from like 7 years, and I was the Ezra of Clone Wars, and so I automatically sometimes want to be snippy and sarcastic, and so I would say there's oftentimes I have to do a couple more takes to really get into Rebels Ahsoka.
But I did want to maintain parts of that too. Like I always felt it was important that a kid watching Ahsoka that grew up with Clone Wars can still see in there that there's still a part of her that will wink at you and has fun, because it's who she is. I mean, as a young person and as an older person, you still keep a lot of traits. So we just have to be very specific when it creeps in. Most of the time for me with Ahsoka, I think that she's looking at this world of these friends, and especially Kanan and Ezra, and it reminds her of the way things used to be, and things aren't that way now. That all got taken from her, and she's trying to figure out how does she move forward herself. But she very much respects them and cares about them and is happy for them, but she doesn't have that anymore, and she wouldn't even inject herself or include herself in what's going on there, except in very minimal ways, as she figures out her own path.
Dee, could you talk a little bit about, you've done so many voices and so many big events, big projects. Is there something different about being part of the Star Wars universe?
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, there's a lot very different about being part of Star Wars. I mean, first of all, this is something I've loved since I was a kid. I mean, I always show around the picture of the Jawa costume my parents made for me the Halloween after A New Hope was released in 1977. So this is something I was very interested in, definitely on my radar all of my life. So to be involved in something that you really love deeply as a kid, but to be in it, it is living a dream, like no other project that I've been involved with. And that it's such an enduring and beloved and interesting and rich universe, and that it continues to expand, that makes it even better. It's that it's not just kind of a one-off or a quick thing, that it's just part of this evolving, growing, living mythology planet that covers our planet. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. I don't know what to compare it to. I think it's fantastic.
And you've played more characters in Star Wars than any other actor in the world.
Well, I suppose
like
that's
you can't even count credited wise.
Yeah, I count every clone, so yeah.
That's right.
Every one of them gets counted.
That's right.
This one is for Vanessa and Freddie. How do you think the relationship between Hera and Kanan has grown and changed as they're sort of the head of the family aboard the Ghost?
Well, the threats are a lot bigger in season 2 than in season 1. Season 1 is a bit more happy-go-lucky because we're winning. We're dealing with small-town government, and it's not that big a deal. In season 2, I mean, everybody's seen our summer movie now. It's Vader, so it's, you know, the stakes can't get higher than that. So, you know, when you guys saw that, you know, my wife's playing the seventh sister, and we don't know the gentleman playing the fifth brother, but we know that there are two of them chasing us, so there's not gonna be as much time for those sort of, you know, hey, here's a private moment. They may try to, you know, steal some personal things, but it's usually gonna be to resolve conflict or to help me sort of believe in a plan that I may not necessarily believe in, but I've been asked to trust by Ahsoka. I don't wanna be with this guy. Rex to me is not Dee. Like, I love Dee. But, you know, if you've read the comics, you've seen in a very sort of visceral way why Kanan would sort of not think that's cool. So, it's, you know, you'll see more of that than you will the space marriage lane, if that's where it's just not gonna be as much of enough.
I would say it's more, I'm asking him to trust more than ever before.
Yeah.
Because if you have empirical evidence and a personal experience with a clone basically, you know, annihilating not only.
And he looks
your
just
master-
like the dude who did it.
Exactly. I'm begging him to go from our small structure into a bigger militaristic structure, which he detests. And he must cooperate, so I feel like if there is an affection for them, it's now she's cashing that in to really get him as a call to action and to commit to what looks like a ridiculous idea. So I think the ask is bigger for Hera, and the fact that he follows through and does is a demonstration of his love. I don't know that we have time to talk about all that. So it's perhaps what's said without words.
But she loves me.
I think I spend more time in season 2 hoping he's still alive, and I'm the getaway driver waiting, standing by. So there are a lot of really great lightsaber duels and chases and all sorts of things to look forward to.
Getaway driver always gets killed.
Yeah. No, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
Not in this iteration, thank God. But anyway, I think it's more what's said without words than what you'll actually see in terms of banter and affection.
All right, Justin, you wanna close it out? This is
Sure.
the last clip.
This is for Dave. I'm curious because of what you've said about Sabine this season having a little bit more of a journey. And also it seems like there were more references to Mandalore in those 2 episodes than all of season 1. Can you talk a little bit more about the journey that Sabine is going to go on this season?
I mean, I just think it was important to flesh out all the characters, and, you know, especially a character like Sabine. There's so many interesting things, just the fact that she's Mandalorian. And we dealt so much with Mandalorians in Clone Wars. It has a whole history that I've diagrammed at whiteboards on Lucasfilms multiple times, Bob and Dobbins, to try to track all these family houses and who belongs to what. I mean, it's a very complex world, and one that I know fans are interested in. So I just think the idea that she's from this warrior culture gets brought to the forefront as we move forward, because I think people would want to know about it. I mean, you know, she, like anyone, has parents and a family, and what were they like? And now that we know that there was such a history on Mandalore, were they involved in any of that, you know, that we saw? The interesting thing to me has been, like, this was a strange discovery this season, but I found there to be at least 2 cases where we were filming something and it developed a character, and then I realized, oh, that character had been on screen in Clone Wars, but I didn't even know it, because they had a helmet on. So, but when you think about it, it's reasonable to assume that this character was standing right there. And I did, but because in Clone Wars they were just a background character wearing a helmet, you would never know. But now, it's like sometimes you find these people in this story as you evolve it. And I would say that's a bit of the case with some of Sabine's history. You know, that she wasn't around to see any of that. She was such a young child. But, you know, it's important. I can't even get into the importance of developing these female characters in a multiple roles, as mentors, as combatants, strong personalities. You want the whole range for people to look at. And as you go through Star Wars, we have so many examples of so many different characters, you know, for boys to grow up emulating, and it's like, you know, we need to broaden that. It's just been a real goal of mine. My wife is very outspoken and all these things, that she studies and researches, and the most important thing I've done is listen to her. And any other, woman that's come up to me to say, hey, this is what I feel we're missing and lacking. It's the same trait I took on, frankly, that made me successfully work with George. I listened to him. I don't know the best way to tell those stories. I'm in a position where I have the authority to put them into play. So my strongest play here can be, I want to activate that. I want to create these opportunities and then see how far they can go. I mean, Tia, has earned, I think, that her performance, Vanessa's performance, so strongly identified with girls because they go, oh my gosh, Hansel was the pilot that I knew. Now it's Hera, and she's an awesome pilot. What does that mean? When Ahsoka stepped on a stage and is the apprentice to what people always identified as the most powerful Jedi of all time, it was like a bomb for fans. How could that be? Well, it just is. Just deal with it. Guess what that means? It means that she's a better sword fighter than Kanan. Period.
I don't care. I don't have that.
So I think
people take it way more personally than I do.
When you can develop these characters, though, it's just so important because it makes your universe real. It makes because people feel these characters are real, these people are real, and I just think it's the way to go. And she's interesting. Hera's interesting. I want to tell stories about compelling people. And, Freddie gets his day, Taylor gets his day, Steve gets his day, even Chopper. Chopper gets his day. There's a massively huge Chopper episode. When I talk backstory this year, everybody gets it. You can find out where Hera found Chopper. And how she rebuilt it. It's actually really important. But I would say of arcs, Chopper is the only one that does an arc. Kind of a jerk in the beginning, and he's still pretty much a jerk later. Your cat will go through that period as it gets older, and it's will sit on your lap more, but it's still a jerk. There's not much you can do to change it. And I think it's important for Chopper, but he does get a friend this year. So he doesn't really have.
That he doesn't eject out an airlock.
Yeah. That's a big step for him.
It's growing.
A big step. But just because that was the last question.
That's the last question.
Did you like the episode? It's a very important episode arc to me, to have Rex back, and you want to make sure you get that right. And just to talk briefly about that, if I can, the whole thing with the clones, when I started to think about bringing them back, and I guess this is because I'm from Pennsylvania, and when you live in Pennsylvania, most old people move to Florida, and they fish, and they buy a big Winnebago or whatnot RV, and they travel to Florida. So I was always fascinated by that as a kid, and I would always draw Rex fishing. My grandfather used to fish, and he would take us fishing, and I thought, this image of him fishing, sitting on the back deck of something somewhere, and then I made the back deck of it a walker, and then I realized that the big gun on the ATTE looks like a giant fishing rod. It just all started to fall into place, and it's one of those awesome things too, because I could tell at certain points Henry Gore was like, are we seriously doing that? I'm like, yes. The fact that you think it's weird really motivates me to make this happen. So I'm going to go. So I like this idea that it was a difficult thing for the clones, that they basically outlived their usefulness. The Emperor got rid of them, the old guys. And so what did they do? Some of them go work on the docks, some of them just, wander the streets of Coruscant, I guess. Rex somehow managed the tank and got that, and hooked up with Wolf and Gregor. So I can finally live up to what I promised kids about Gregor surviving that, which was cool for me. And there are these three old guys fishing, which is a very comforting thought to me, I guess. So that was the whole motivation, and I wanted this kind of Howl's Moving Castle walking tank, wonderfully designed by Andre Kirk on the design team. And that you can't look at without hoping it becomes a Lego set, right? So we all have the same hopes for this stuff, just whether you're on the show or not. But and it was a nice story for the team that was working on Rebels that worked on Clone Wars to tell, because it was so familiar to us. And the characters were so familiar to us. And, you know, Rex, Santa Claus that he is, I think adds a great dynamic for Kanan. There was an additional ending on this story. They're just so interested in Star Wars, it's fun to talk. That's great. Gregor and Wolf actually take the AT-AT, or the AT-AT, if you will, and they, there's a version of that AT-AT that Sabine has painted that has a giant wolf head on the side of the head. And it was great. Everybody was like, you know, you're not really going to do that. They prevented me from putting a tail on it because I just thought it looked like a great wolf. So some of the, I want to have more fun than the game does, but I had to cut it for time. But the whole idea for Film Nerds on why they would take this tank at the end was based on Kelly's Heroes, where a tank driver has a Sherman tank and then he steals it, he pays for the Tiger tank at the end, and I love that movie. So
Yeah, man.
I get that, you know it. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
That's Donald Sutherland.
And there's more Rex coming out. The sad thing is, now you can feel the power that you have, but when you know the story, no one else does. Dee hasn't seen it, right? I haven't shown you those episodes yet.
No, sir.
Sorry. It's my fault, but it is fun, you can see. So you can reference stuff to Dee and he won't know, so that's fun to do. And tell him that he died. Try that out.
That I don't remember.
Yeah. But you're gonna see it wonderfully soon, so, which is great. Sorry, I was out of here, but
Yeah,
thank you
October
guys.
14th, right?
Is
that
that
when it's out?
Is that the day?
What's the release date?
14.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'll be
Thanks for all the
working on
hard work.
Star Wars that day.
Anytime, sir.
So, thank you guys again. We have some more business to do with some of you, but I personally would like to thank you guys again.